My name is Rebecca Morgan. I'm 38 years old, and the night everything began unraveling, I was standing on a ladder with a screwdriver in my hand, staring up at a ceiling fan that wouldn't stop wobbling. It's funny how the smallest, most ordinary moments end up branded into your memory. Not the big fights, not the screaming matches. Just you alone, fixing something that shouldn't be broken, wondering why it always feels like you're the only one holding things together. I've always been that woman. Leaky pipes, jammed doors, flickering lights. If something needed fixing, I fixed it. Not just at home, this was my life. I ran my own small contracting business. No flashy trucks, no social media hype, just a good reputation, repeat clients, and hands that knew what they were doing. I liked working with tools because tools made sense. You applied pressure in the right place, and something changed. People didn't work like that. When I met Ethan Carter, he was 2 years out from a brutal divorce. His ex-girlfriend had walked away from him and their kids, Emma 13 at the time, and Noah 10, without so much as pretending to look back. No child support, no follow-up, just gone. I wasn't looking to be anyone's replacement. I wasn't chasing a family. I just wanted someone to come home to, someone who didn't roll their eyes when I talked about drywall anchors or how copper prices were getting ridiculous again. Ethan listened. That's what pulled me in. He had this calm, attentive way of looking at you, like your words mattered. I didn't realize at first that some people are very good at appearing present while letting you carry all the weight. That realization came later. When I moved in, I made myself small on purpose. I didn't try to parent. I didn't demand affection. I stayed in my lane. I drove the kids to school when needed, showed up at soccer games, fixed cracked tiles, leaking faucets, loose railings. I paid most of the bills without making a show of it. Ethan worked, but inconsistently. I didn't mind. I told myself we were a team. Emma barely spoke to me unless she needed something. I chalked it up to being a teenager. Noah was different at first. He'd sit in the garage with me, ask questions, hand me tools. Once he asked if I could help him build a birdhouse for a school project. I bought the wood, let him use my drill under supervision. He beamed when we finished. Later, I found out he told his teacher his real mom helped him. Ethan laughed when he told me like it was cute. I laughed too. That laugh stayed in my chest like a splinter. The first real crack came quietly. I picked Emma up from school one afternoon and asked how her test went. Without looking up from her phone, she said, "You don't have to pretend to care." No anger, no drama, just dismissal. I told Ethan that night, carefully, softly. He shrugged. "She's moody. Hormones. Don't take it personally." So I didn't, or at least I told myself I didn't. Months passed like that. Eye rolls, sighs, silence. Ethan said the kids just needed time, that I was doing great, that they appreciated me in their own way. But appreciation never sounds like silence. We got married the following summer. Small backyard ceremony. I thought it would anchor us. Instead, it drew a line I hadn't known was there. After that, the house felt colder, less eye contact, less acknowledgement. I was there but not included. One night, I came home exhausted from a brutal job rewiring an entire basement in 90-degree heat. The garage door wouldn't open. Inside, Emma was throwing a birthday party for her friend. Balloons, soda spills, cake crumbs ground into the carpet. No one acknowledged me, not even Ethan. I stood there, tools still over my shoulder, feeling like I'd walked into someone else's house. Later, when I asked why no one told me, Ethan waved it off. "You're always working. I figured you'd be late." That was the first time the thought crossed my mind. I don't live here, I maintain this place. I didn't say it out loud, I just kept fixing things. Because that's what I did. And for a long time, I believed that if I just worked a little harder, gave a little more, everything would eventually hold together. I didn't know yet that some structures aren't breaking. They're being used. The thing about being useful is that people stop seeing you. Slowly at first, like you're fading at the edges of a photograph. Then one day you look around and realize you're barely in the frame at all. After the party incident, something shifted in me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet awareness that settled in my chest and refused to leave. I started noticing patterns I'd been too busy to see before. Ethan stopped saying thank you. Not for the little things, not for the big ones either. I repaired the air conditioner in the middle of a July heat wave when it seized up at midnight. I worked until my arms ached and my shirt was soaked through. When it finally kicked back on cold air, rushing through the vents, Emma cheered from her bedroom. Noah turned the fan higher. Ethan rolled over and went back to sleep. No one came out to the garage to check on me. No one asked how long it took. No one said a word the next morning. I told myself it didn't matter. Gratitude wasn't why I did things. But when it disappears completely, the silence gets loud. Emma's behavior grew sharper. She left laundry in the hallway like obstacles I was meant to step around. When I asked her once calmly to pick it up, she looked at me like I'd insulted her. "You're not my mom," she said flatly, like she was reciting something she'd practiced. My mouth opened, then closed again. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I picked up my drill and went outside to finish the fence I'd started building along the backyard. My hands shook the entire time. Ethan heard it. He was standing in the kitchen when she said it. He didn't correct her, didn't say my name, didn't step in. That hurt more than the words themselves. I started realizing that every boundary I tried to set was treated like an inconvenience. Every expectation I had was reframed as me being too sensitive. If I spoke up, I was reminded that the kids had already been abandoned once, that I should be the bigger person. I was always the bigger person. Noah changed too. He used to hang around me, ask questions, follow me like a shadow. Now he barely acknowledged me unless he needed something. One night I came home late from an emergency job burst, pipe flooded, kitchen frantic client. The living room TV was still on. Noah sat there eating chips, glued to YouTube. I said gently, "Hey, it's late. You should probably head to bed." He didn't look up. "You don't get to tell me what to do." The words landed with ease, like they'd been rehearsed. I stood there longer than necessary, waiting for him to glance up. He didn't. I walked into the bedroom and found Ethan scrolling through his phone. I told him what Noah said. He didn't look up either. "Maybe don't talk to him like you're in charge," he said. "You're not his parent." That was the first night I didn't sleep beside him. I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling fan I'd installed 6 months earlier, listening to it hum perfectly, and wondered why I cared so much about things working when nothing else did. After that, I started keeping records. I didn't know why at first, just a feeling, a whisper in my head telling me to pay attention. I saved receipts, took screenshots, wrote down dates, every bill I paid, every repair I handled, every responsibility that quietly fell to me. Love had started to feel transactional, like I kept giving and the return was permission to exist in the background. The breaking point didn't come all at once. It built slowly like rust inside a pipe. And I didn't know it yet, but I was already preparing to leave. There's a moment in every slow collapse when the damage stops being theoretical and becomes personal, not implied, not inferred, just spoken aloud, plain and undeniable. For me, it happened on an ordinary weekday evening. I'd come home exhausted, the kind of tired that settles into your bones. My knees ached from laying tile all day in a half-renovated house with no AC. My hands were scraped up my head, pounding. All I wanted was a quiet dinner and maybe 10 minutes of peace. Instead, I walked into the garage and saw the door wide open. My stomach tightened immediately. I never left the garage open. Ever. My tools were my livelihood. I kept them organized, locked, respected. Precision mattered. Care mattered. Inside drawers were half open. A few bits were missing from my set. My table saw sat unplugged slightly off angle, like someone had dragged it and not bothered to put it back. I went inside slowly, every step heavy. Noah was on the couch eating chips, TV blaring. I asked carefully, "Did you use the garage today?" He shrugged without looking away from the screen. "Yeah. Emma's boyfriend needed a drill." That sentence sucked the air out of the room. "Which drill?" I asked. "One of the red ones," he said. He said he'd bring it back. One of the red ones. I didn't argue. I didn't react. I turned around, walked back into the garage, and checked again. My Milwaukee cordless drill was gone, along with my full bit set, hundreds of dollars worth of tools. No text, no permission, no warning. When Ethan got home, I told him what happened. He sighed, like I'd complained about traffic. "Oh, come on, he's a good kid. He'll bring it back." That's when it finally clicked. I wasn't a partner. I wasn't family. I was inventory. From that day on, I locked the garage. Every night. Every morning. And without realizing it, I started locking myself away too. I stopped volunteering. Stopped anticipating needs. I fixed what was necessary and nothing more. I went to work, came home, and spent my evenings in the garage with an old radio and a beer, letting static fill the silence where conversation used to live. Then came the car. Emma's car, a used Honda that Ethan and I had split the down payment on, refused to start. I'd warned them weeks earlier the battery was dying. No one listened. That afternoon, Emma stormed into the garage, arms crossed, eyes hard. "You need to fix my car." Not can you help me, not please, just a command. I set down my wrench and looked at her. You can say please, she scoffed. Why you're acting like I owe you something? The words landed clean and sharp. I'm not fixing your car, I said calmly. I'm not your mechanic. She rolled her eyes and stormed inside. An hour later, Ethan followed furious. She's late for school because you're playing power games over a battery. I stared at him, genuinely stunned. I warned you that battery was failing, I said. I'm not rewarding disrespect by jumping every time someone snaps their fingers. He didn't argue. He just turned and slammed the door. That slam echoed louder than anything else. That night, my dinner sat cold on the stove. No plate set, no message. The sink was full of dishes, Emma's, Noah's, Ethan's, stacked like they'd assumed I'd handle it out of habit. I didn't. I sat in the garage radio, crackling softly, and wrote everything down. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, repairs. Line by line. I wasn't making a list anymore. I was building a case. And deep down, I knew the next line that would be crossed wouldn't be accidental. It would be deliberate. The strange thing about deciding to stop fixing things is how quickly everything starts to reveal its true condition. Once I pulled back even just a little, the cracks multiplied. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten or warn anyone. I simply stopped filling the gaps no one else even noticed were there. No more silent grocery runs. No more checking the oil in cars that weren't mine. No more late-night repairs, because something couldn't wait. And almost immediately, the house felt different. Not louder, not angrier, just heavier. The hot water heater began to sputter, coughing up lukewarm showers. The fence panel I'd been meaning to finish stayed half attached, rattling whenever the wind picked up. The lawn went unmowed for 2 weeks straight until a neighbor finally complained. No one thanked me when I used to handle those things, but everyone noticed when I didn't. Ethan grew irritable, not openly, not directly, just small sighs, clipped responses, passive-aggressive comments muttered under his breath. Emma walked past me like I was a wall. Noah barely acknowledged my presence unless he needed a ride. One evening, I came home to find my drill set gone again. Not borrowed, gone. Toolboxes rummaged through, bits missing. My soldering iron one I'd bought myself after landing a big contract nowhere to be found. I stood in the garage for a long time, hands on my hips, breathing slowly, forcing myself not to explode. I walked inside and found Emma on the couch with her boyfriend feet up, eating breakfast like it was a hotel. Ethan, I called out, my voice sharper than usual. He appeared in the hallway, already annoyed. Did you let them take my tools again? I asked. He hesitated. Emma answered for him. You weren't using them. He needed them. No apology, no explanation, just entitlement. I looked at Ethan. Do you even respect me anymore? The question hung there, fragile and dangerous. He frowned. What kind of question is that? A simple one, I said. Do you? He didn't answer right away. That pause was everything. It's not about respect, he finally said. It's about knowing your place. You knew what this family was when you signed up. You're not their real mother. There it was. Out loud. Clean. Undeniable. Emma's boyfriend laughed quietly from the couch. Yeah, you're just kind of here. Something inside me went still. Not angry, not sad. Finished. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I walked back into the garage and packed my tools with careful precision. Drills, saws, levels, everything I needed to build a life somewhere else. Ethan followed me halfway, arms crossed. Where are you going? He demanded. I didn't look at him as I loaded the truck. You'll miss me, I said evenly, when the bills show up. Then I got in, turned the ignition, and drove away from that house like it had never belonged to me. Because it hadn't. Not really. I didn't leave a note. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I'd already said it. Every ignored request, every dismissed boundary, every moment of silence had spoken louder than words ever could. The first night I slept in the back of my truck. I parked behind a small hardware store I'd done repairs for over the years, under an old oak tree whose branches scraped softly against the roof when the wind moved. The manager spotted me in the morning and offered coffee without asking questions. I took it. We stood there quietly, steam curling up between us like an unspoken understanding. I wasn't homeless. I had options, friends, motels, 1,000 places I could have gone. But I needed stillness. No accusations, no guilt, no being told I was overreacting. Just the hum of a street lamp and my own breathing. The second night, I drove 2 towns over and checked into a cheap motel, peeling wallpaper, a humming AC unit, a bed that smelled faintly like detergent and something older underneath. I locked the door and took a shower that felt like a baptism. Standing in front of the mirror afterward, I barely recognized myself. Scruffy hair, tired eyes, a line between my brows I didn't remember earning. I looked like someone who'd spent years giving and finally reached the end of the rope. The days that followed came in waves. I turned off my phone, let calls go unanswered, walked parks, sat on benches, drank gas station coffee like it was fine wine, watched families laugh and couples argue and teenagers scroll endlessly on their phones. Life moved on without me. And strangely, that was comforting. At night, doubts crept in. What if you overreacted? What if they didn't mean it? What if Ethan really did love you, just didn't know how to show it? That voice was quiet and persuasive. It didn't yell, it whispered. But then I'd remember his pause when I asked if he respected me. The way Emma said I was just there. The laughter from someone who didn't even live in that house. No, I hadn't imagined it. They made me invisible, and when I finally noticed, they made me the problem. That realization hardened into resolve. I went back to work slowly, fixed a porch step for a widow I'd helped before, rewired a lamp, hung a ceiling fan. People said thank you. They offered lemonade. They looked me in the eye. It felt like rain after a drought. A week later, an old friend called Travis someone I'd worked construction with years ago. He'd heard through the grapevine I'd left. "You can stay at my cabin near Lake Garnet," he said. "No rent. Needs work, but the bones are good." I laughed for the first time in weeks. The cabin was quiet, isolated, honest. I slept on a dusty mattress the first night listening to wind move through the pines. And for the first time in years, I wasn't bracing myself for the next emotional hit. I was rebuilding. And far away from that house, I began to understand something crucial. Walking away wasn't weakness. It was the first thing I'd done for myself in a very long time. The cabin didn't look like much when I first arrived. One room, a sagging porch, pine needles everywhere, and a smell that hovered somewhere between damp wood and forgotten summers. But it was quiet, honest. No expectations waiting for me inside the walls. I liked that. During the day I worked. Small jobs at first, word-of-mouth stuff, fixing porch steps, replacing broken outlets, rehanging doors that had never sat right. I kept my head down and my hands busy. At night I returned to the cabin and worked some more, not for clients, but for myself. I fixed the leaky roof, patched cracks in the floorboards, replaced warped window frames. I moved slowly, deliberately, savoring the fact that no one was watching. No one was waiting to see what I could give them next. This time, every repair stayed mine. The silence did strange things to me at first. Without the constant tension, my mind didn't know where to go. I'd catch myself listening for footsteps that never came, bracing for comments that weren't there. Then gradually the quiet softened. I stopped thinking about Emma's tone, about Noah's words, about Ethan's shrug. Perspective crept in, the way it always does when you finally step far enough away. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. A few weeks in, I got a letter. Not a text, not a voicemail. An actual envelope tucked under my windshield wiper while I was at the hardware store. No return address, just my name written carefully across the front. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper. Rebecca, I know you're angry. I know we didn't show it, but we miss you. The house doesn't feel the same without you. The sink's leaking again. The lawn's out of control. Emma's car won't start. Noah's been quieter than usual. I didn't realize how much you were holding together until you were gone. Please come back, or at least call. Ethan. I stared at that note for a long time. The old reflex kicked in immediately. That familiar tug in my chest telling me to go back, to fix, to make it right. But then I remembered his pause, his words, knowing your place. I folded the letter and tucked it into my bag. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't respond either. Instead, I kept building. The cabin started to feel like a home. I refinished the floors, installed shelves, set up a small workshop in the shed out back. On weekends, I fished at the lake or sat on the porch with a cold drink, watching the sun sink behind the trees. Peace stopped feeling temporary. Around the third week, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Hello," I said. Silence, then a familiar voice. "Rebecca, it's Noah." My throat tightened. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he said quickly, like he was afraid I'd hang up. "For what I said. I didn't mean it. I was mad, but I shouldn't have said that." I didn't interrupt him. "It's weird without you," he continued. "The house is quiet. Mom's stressed. Emma's fighting with her boyfriend all the time. I tried fixing the fence, but I don't know what I'm doing." His voice cracked at the end. "I don't know if you'll ever come back," he said softly. "But I wanted you to know I miss you. I really do." When the call ended, I sat on the porch and let the tears fall. Not because I was broken, but because for the first time, someone from that house saw me. Still, I didn't go back. Because rebuilding yourself isn't about being needed again. It's about deciding whether you ever want to be. I didn't plan on revenge. That's the part people never believe. By the time my life felt steady again, by the time the cabin smelled like fresh wood instead of mildew, by the time my business calendar was full weeks in advance, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even thinking about them most days. I had work, I had quiet, I had control over my own time. That should have been the end of it. But the truth has a way of surfacing when you stop holding everything down. It started with a text from an unknown number. You need to know what Emma did. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. Who is this? The answer came a minute later. Mallory. I used to be friends with Emma. We don't talk anymore, but this isn't right and you deserve to know. The name clicked. Loud girl, always on her phone, used to be at the house constantly back when I still lived there. Mallory didn't ease into it. She sent screenshots. Emails, school correspondence. My stomach dropped as I read them. Months before I left, Emma had been involved in a cheating scandal at school group chats, plagiarized assignments, the whole thing. Parents were contacted, administrators followed protocol, but Ethan never knew, because the school emails never reached him. They reached me. Emma had listed my email address as the primary guardian contact, and when the messages came in, she deleted them. Not only that, she'd gone into my laptop, figured out my password from watching me type it in, and set up an email filter. School messages were redirected to an old Gmail account she controlled. A private dead drop. The final screenshot made my hands go cold. An email sent from my address. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I've spoken with Emma and will ensure this behavior doesn't continue. Please keep me updated. Rebecca M. She impersonated me, covered up academic fraud, spoke to school administration under my name. I sat there in the cabin, the quiet pressing in from all sides, and felt something settle, not rage, not grief. Certainty. This wasn't teenage rebellion. It was deliberate. I thanked Mallory. She didn't ask for anything in return, just said she wanted to do the right thing. 2 days later, I drove into town. I didn't call Ethan. I didn't warn anyone. I went straight to the school. The vice principal listened carefully as I laid everything out. The emails, the screenshots, a notarized statement confirming I never sent or authorized any of those messages. He leaned back in his chair silent for a long moment. She's not the first student to try something like this, he said slowly. But this is thorough. What happens now? I asked. She'll be called in, he said, and so will her parent. I nodded. That wasn't revenge. That was accountability. A week later, my phone rang. It was Ethan, I answered calmly. Did you report Emma? He demanded, his voice already shaking. No, I said evenly. I provided accurate information when I was made aware of what happened. The school made their decision. She's suspended, he said, like I should be shocked. They're putting it on her record. She could lose scholarship opportunities. She impersonated me, I replied. She interfered with school administration. Those were her choices. You could have come to me first, he snapped. I let the silence stretch before answering. Like how you came to me when she told me I didn't matter. When she took my tools, when Noah told me to shut up and you said nothing. The line went quiet. I thought you were better than this, he said finally. I almost smiled. I am, I said. That's why I walked away instead of burning it all down. Then I hung up. Clean, final. That should have been enough. But there was one more truth they hadn't fully faced yet, and I was done carrying it for them. I didn't send the binder out of spite. That's important. I sent it because truth deserves structure. For years, I had been the invisible framework holding that household upright. When I left, I didn't just take my tools, I took the scaffolding they never bothered to see. The binder was proof of that. Not opinions, not feelings, numbers, dates, receipts, facts. Mortgage payments I covered when Ethan's work slowed. Utility bills in my name because you're better with that stuff. Insurance premiums, property taxes, groceries, repairs, birthday dinners, school supplies, gas money, emergency fixes at midnight. 3 full years. I scanned everything into a single clean PDF and emailed it to Ethan with one short note. Since you're managing the household now, this should help you understand what it actually costs to keep it running. Rebecca. No demand for repayment, no accusation, just documentation. He didn't reply. He didn't have to. A week later, Mallory texted me again. They're listing the house. I checked. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, fixer-upper, price to sell fast. That phrase made me laugh quietly, because it wasn't a fixer-upper when I lived there. According to a neighbor, I still trusted the hot water heater finally failed. The fence never got repaired. The AC sputtered again. Bills stacked up. Emma's grades dropped further after the suspension. Noah started acting out in school. The house didn't just deteriorate, it lost its balance. Meanwhile, my life kept expanding. I registered my business properly. Morgan Home Solutions. Simple, clean, mine. I landed a steady contract through a property management company, consistent work, real respect, no emotional debt attached. I hired part-time help, bought new equipment with money I earned and didn't feel guilty about. I even started dating again, slowly, carefully. Her name was Julia, a freelance graphic designer, smart, observant, kind without being passive. She listened when I spoke. She didn't treat boundaries like obstacles. She helped me redesign my business logo one evening, sitting beside me on the porch while the sun dipped behind the trees. One night she asked gently, "Do you ever think about going back?" I thought about it honestly. "No," I said, "not even a little." She smiled. "Good." The final call came a month later. Ethan's voice sounded tired, older. "I see it now," he said quietly. "I should have defended you. I didn't understand how much you were holding up until it collapsed." I believed him. But belief doesn't undo damage. "I'm glad you understand," I said. "I needed you to. But understanding doesn't mean access." He didn't argue. That was the closest thing to closure I needed. I didn't win by watching them struggle. I didn't win by punishing anyone. I won by leaving a place where my worth was conditional and building a life where it wasn't questioned. So if there's one thing I learned, it's this. You don't get to erase someone's contribution and then be shocked when everything falls apart after they're gone. You don't get to burn the bridge and then complain that no one swims back. I didn't stop fixing things. I just started fixing the right ones. People think the ending is the moment you leave. It isn't. Leaving is just the door closing behind you. What comes after that quiet, unglamorous stretch where no one's watching, that's where the real story finishes writing itself. Months passed, not in dramatic bursts, just steady, ordinary days, stacked one on top of another. I woke up early, made coffee, checked my schedule, worked with my hands, came home tired. In a good way, the kind of tired that comes from effort, not emotional depletion. The cabin changed with the seasons. Autumn painted the trees in copper and gold. Winter came heavy and honest snow piling against the porch rails. I'd reinforced myself. Every board held, every repair lasted. That mattered more to me than I expected. Every once in a while, something from my old life drifted across my path like smoke. A mutual friend mentioning Ethan looked worn down. A neighbor asking if I'd heard Emma transferred schools. Someone else telling me Noah joined a shop class and was really good with tools. I listened. I didn't comment. I learned something important during that time. Closure doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it's simply the absence of pain where it used to live. One afternoon, I found the letter Ethan had written me, the one I'd folded and tucked away weeks earlier. I reread it once, then finally let it go. Not angrily, not ceremoniously, just done. I wasn't carrying it anymore. Julia stayed. She never tried to fill a role, never asked me to explain myself more than I wanted to. When I talked about my past, she listened. When I didn't, she didn't push. We built something slow, deliberate, mutual. One night while we were sitting by the fire, she said, "You know what I admire most about you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Your taste in men." She smiled. "You didn't stay where you were tolerated." That stayed with me, because that was the line I hadn't been able to name back then. I wasn't unloved. I was tolerated as long as I kept fixing, paying, absorbing, shrinking. And the moment I stopped, the illusion collapsed. I don't regret loving them. I don't regret trying. What I regret is how long I mistook usefulness for belonging. So if you're reading this and something feels familiar, if you're the one holding everything together while everyone else treats that effort like background noise, hear this clearly. Love doesn't make you disappear. Family doesn't require erasure. And respect isn't something you earn by bleeding quietly. I didn't walk away to teach them a lesson. I walked away because I finally learned mine. There's a version of this story people expect. The big apology, the tearful reunion, the moment where everyone finally understands at the same time and says the right words. That version never came, and that's okay. About a year after I left, I ran into Ethan by accident at a grocery store just outside town. No warning, no emotional buildup, just the two of us reaching for the same carton of milk. He looked thinner, tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. We stood there for a second, unsure who should speak first. "I heard your business is doing well," he said finally. "It is," I replied, and for the first time I didn't feel the urge to soften that truth for him. He nodded. "I'm glad." I believe that too. He didn't ask me to come back. Didn't hint. Didn't apologize again. I think by then he understood that some losses don't come with do-overs. Some people aren't meant to return only to be remembered. We wished each other well and went our separate ways down opposite aisles. That was it. No dramatic music, no last words. Just closure in its most honest form, neutrality. Later that evening, back at the cabin, I stood on the porch and watched the sun slip behind the trees. The place felt lived in now, earned. Every beam, every screw, every decision had my fingerprints on it. Julia stepped outside and handed me a mug of tea. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." About how strange it is that the hardest chapters don't end with explosions, but with silence. About how peace doesn't announce itself. It just shows up one day and stays. About how strength isn't proving you mattered to people who refuse to see it. It's knowing you matter anyway. If there's one final truth I'll leave you with, it's this. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fixing what's broken. It's accepting that you don't live there anymore and building something better without apology.